Is Tanner Mordecai the best Wisconsin quarterback since Russell Wilson? We're going to talk about that quarterback preview show today. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. We're talking quarterbacks today. We got Rajeev coming on the show. And if you notice on the board behind me back here, that's a little, if you know what happened with PJ Fleck, you'll understand that reference. Rajeev, I want to actually really quickly start there. What were your thoughts on the PJ Fleck story that came out?
Well, I laughed a little bit because it's Minnesota, but also really PJ Fleck, listen, I haven't liked the guy since he was at Western Michigan. I don't like the guy in Minnesota. He seems like he's this big players guy who everyone's going to love. And it turns out he's kind of who we thought he was. And I don't know, man, maybe he's the next one out the door.
Maybe. I feel like that report isn't damning enough, right? From what we read, but it's not a good look. Like if you ever make people clap for you, and if they don't clap loud enough, you come back in the room to make them do it again. I'm telling you right there, that's a red flag. That's not the guy you want your team to go play for.
It's really not the way that Minnesota wants to kick off their season. Fine by us, their season can be as bad as it wants to be, but what a bad way. We're talking about we're a month away from kickoff pretty much, and you're having this distraction right now going into camp. Not good. Going into media days, really not good.
That's a great point. And really quickly, I made the point, compare and contrast Badger fans with Luke Fickell coming in and everything he's done to Gopher fans waking up and hearing their coach forces his players to applaud for him, right? This rivalry is going in a different direction. But he is Rajeev. Let's get into it. We're talking quarterbacks, and we have
Badgers winning a national title? Absolutely. Going on Final Four runs? Why not? It's Believe with Rajeev on today's Locked On Badgers.
It never gets old to me. All right, so this is how we're going to do quarterback preview. We're going to kind of talk about the room. We're going to give it a present grade. What do we think of this season's quarterback room? We're going to give it a future grade, and then we're going to get into some over-unders, how many yards, touchdowns, interceptions. We're going to get into some superlatives as well. So let's just run down the quarterback room. Obviously, Tanner Mordecai coming in from SMU, proven player, 2 back-to-back great years at SMU. And then you have a bunch of touted but unproven players, right? Braedyn Locke transferring to Mississippi State, Nick Evers, Oklahoma. You still have Miles Burkett on the roster. Cole grew coming in last year in high school as a true freshman. And then in 24, you have Matt Toyer, and in 25, you have Locke. I want to just start quarterback grade this year. Rajeev, I want you to give it a grade, then we're going to break it down. What is your quarterback grade for this year?
I'm going to say B+. And I feel like earlier in the year, I might have given it a higher grade. I don't remember what it was. But truthfully, the spring game kind of affected me a little bit, as far as my grade. I pulled it down a little bit. But yeah, I think it's going to be fine. I probably could have given it an A- or something because Mordecai is very proven. He's coming in here having thrown, over 7,000 yards the past 2 years. Clearly, there's pedigree. And you couple that with Longo in the system we're going to be running. And yeah, I'm happy about where the quarterback room is. Really like Braedyn Locke a lot. So that kind of helps me want to drive it back up to the A- range. But I'm going to say B+ just because the only time we saw them on the field, it wasn't what we wanted. So brought it down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm at a B, which it may sound a little harsh, but it's for a lot of reasons you have, right? We haven't seen Tanner Mordecai in a Power 5 conference. I think if you're giving a team an A grade at quarterback, it's because they have a guy who's going to be a top 3 NFL round pick, right? A guy like Ohio State has had, or a McNamara, or a Bryce, those are A grades. And Tanner Mordecai is at Wisconsin because he wasn't going to get drafted where he thought he wanted to be. He was going to be a late round / UDFA guy. That's still a really good college quarterback. But when we're talking A's, the A's are the elite guys. I don't think Tanner Mordecai has been in that position quite yet. But a B is a good grade. A B is a above average quarterback for this year. I think Tanner Mordecai is clearly that. I think he has the potential to get higher. I love Braedyn Locke as a backup, but he's unproven. That's the other thing I looked at here. If Tanner Mordecai were to get hurt, how confident are you? Now, a lot of teams don't have a great backup quarterback in college football because a lot of teams don't have a great starter. But a lot of teams do have a guy who's had a little more experience, a little more time in the system that you could say maybe have a little more confidence in going in and playing. So I have it as a B, which, again, if you look back at the course of the last several years, a B is an improvement. A B is a good quarterback, right?
Anything over a C at this school right now, yeah, we'll take it. Definitely take it.
Yep. So I have a B. Future grade. I'll kick this one off. I have a B plus. I think the upside and the numbers. I have a ton of faith in Phil Longo. Sorry, not well. Luke Fickle as well, but Phil Longo for quarterbacks. A ton of faith there. I love the upside of a Nick Evers. I love Braedyn Locke. Braedyn Locke is already locked in 25. Met Toyer in 24. I think those are really important gets. But again, just nobody's proven. I don't think you can give. I think an A future grade is a guy who's already performed really well as a starter, and you have him for a couple more years. We just don't have anybody proven. But I love the upside. And I love the numbers. So I'm going B plus on the future grade.
I also went up a little bit. I went to A- speaking for that because of, the level of our room is so much higher than the level has been in the past. So it's the fact that we have Braedyn Locke and Nick Evers, who we were really excited about when he came here, and you're talking about Mabry next year. So Cole LaCrue, like there's a lot of depth back there as far as true talent, all of which we wouldn't necessarily have seen on this team if Chris was still here. So I'm going to definitely go A-. Agree, we don't have anybody that's going to be coming in the future and lighting it up as far as like someone on the roster that has that playing time, but very happy with the direction of the room, and that's why it goes up a bit of a step.
Yeah, and listen, if you were to look across college football, and I haven't done this, so I'm kind of speaking out of turn here, but Wisconsin, Met Toyer is a 4-star. Rivals has him as a 4-star. Braedyn Locke was a 4-star. Nick Evers was a 4-star. It's very possible Landon Locke is that type of talent as well. How many quarterback rooms really have multiple 4-star guys waiting in the wings, right? You can never be sure until they are taking live bullets, so to speak. But I think you have a lot of faith with the different skill sets that they bring. So I'm very high on the room in the future. And a couple players that people don't talk about, Cole LaCrue is a guy who this staff wanted. They came in and they said, we do want this guy. He's a winner, good size, mobile, really tough kid. And Miles Burkett has listen, I think we all know the deck is stacked against him there. But he's also a guy who's not giving up. And I think that's pretty darn cool. And he's got some moxie as well. I think it's just a really deep room. And if you have that many bodies, somebody's going to emerge.
And how nice is it that we actually are talking about taking a step up for the future? When you have a guy like Tanner Mordecai who brings this much experience and he only has 1 year to play with you and he's going to be gone, you would think that we're going to give a lower grade to the future because Mordecai's leaving, but we're not. And that is a real testament to what the staff is building in that room, because we see so much upside, and it's all about upside with recruiting. So the fact that it's there and we're actually excited about the future of it really says a lot about where the program is headed.
Yeah, it's well said. And here's the other thing too. I think, and I don't know if I'm going to say this for every position, that's a bit of a teaser, but I think for a quarterback, we're maximized to build on the talent that's there, right? I think we have the right quarterback developer. I think we have the right system. So when you're looking into the future, you have these talents. I think we also have the system and the coaching to marry up to those talents to get the most out of them. Where in previous years, like, listen, Graham Mertz was a 4-star borderline elite pro-style quarterback, but we absolutely, without question, we talked about this when it was happening. We did not maximize anything around him from a coaching or talent or scheme standpoint. So
not even close.
Not even close, right? And listen, we've had the Mertz discussion a lot, so I don't want to go too much down that road. But I think now we're in a position where we're going to maximize these guys' talents, which is just going to allow them to play up to their skill level, their upside. So I feel honestly great. As I talk about this, I feel like bumping up my grade, but I'm going to keep it at a B+. I love the future of this room now.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, we have to be excited. There's no way not to be excited about what's coming.
So I have a B for the present day, B+ for the future. Rajeev is B+ present, A- future?
Yep.
Okay. So we're not too far off here. As per usual, Rajeev is to take more optimistic than me.
Always.
Rajeev, you catch did someone call me the most negative guy in Badger football now?
I don't know how that happened. I mean, you were with me on the optimism train for a while. I don't necessarily think you're on the pessimism train now, but something has clearly gone down. Our listeners don't really think you're optimistic anymore. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, listen, I've dampened the coal a little bit. You got the coal train. I've stopped feeding the fire a little bit, right? I put the dampers in. I don't know any train terminology, but I'm just going to go with it. I've just cooled the locomotive a little bit, right? It's gotten a little crazy, but I still love it.
See no reason to cool it. What's the fun in that? Let's just keep moving forward, buddy.
I love it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're coming back up with over-unders. Do we think Tanner Mordecai is going over under 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 10 interceptions? We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show. A quick second just to say thank you to everybody tuning in. Really do appreciate it as always. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. And listen, it's you need to hire the right people, and every day companies are taking these gigantic risks with new hires, and these days every new potential hire is a high stakes wager, right? You have to nail these, just like quarterback recruiting. You got to nail them, and that's why we brought Phil Longo in here to nail that, and that's what LinkedIn's going to do for your company as well. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's something I've used, again, professionally just to expand my network. It's something my company relies on a ton to not just hire, but to also expand their messaging. LinkedIn does a ton for companies, individuals, and businesses. Simple tools. You can use screening tools to basically remove people that have no business interviewing for your job. It's going to save their time and your time. Plus, small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Let's keep this going with Rajeev, the man who very quickly has become I took him off that. Very quickly has become kind of internet famous here for his optimism. Where a shirt is under development. Rashid, how do you feel? How does your wife feel about you having your face on a shirt potentially coming up here?
My wife rolls her eyes about it every time it comes up. That's how she feels about it. Listen, nobody wants a shirt with my face on it. Not a good idea.
I will buy one.
That's
Absolutely, I will buy one. All right, let's talk over unders here. Tanner Mordecai. I think for some of the positions we're going to get into backups, and I thought about it here, but really the only time anybody's going to play is if Tanner gets hurt. And I don't want to even speculate on that because it seems kind of pointless. Over under Tanner Mordecai, we're going to start with the yardage. You said it at 2,700 yards. I think that's a really good number. Last
3,000
year,
yards.
Or 3,000, sorry.
Yeah.
3,000 yards. Last year threw for 3,300, I believe, at SMU. So 3,000 yards over under Tanner Mordecai passing yards this year.
So this one is actually, these are all kind of tough for me. When I was thinking about like where we're going to set these, I feel like I'm going to take the under, but there's a reason that I'm going to take the under. First of all, only one quarterback in recent history at Wisconsin has thrown for 3,000 yards, and that's Russell Wilson. I'm not saying Tanner Mordecai can't be really, really great. I think he will be, but this is the Big Ten. You know, he played in a conference that didn't have that kind of quality, and the Big Ten defenses are still the Big Ten defenses. So I also really believe that our running game is going to produce a lot more yards than a lot of people are thinking it's going to produce. Therefore, I just feel like he's not necessarily going to be chasing games a lot because I think we're going to be in control of a lot of games. I'm not saying he's not going to air it out. We are going to do that. But when we can control the clock and when we need to do that, we're going to do that. So I feel like, 2,900 is still a phenomenal season, by the way. I mean, no one else has done it other than Russell Wilson be at 29. I think that's where he'll get. Tough call, but I think the running game's going to be really impressive, which will bring down those yards a little bit.
I'm going to go slightly over 3,000. I'm not far from you, though. He's not going to hit the SMU numbers. The last 2 years at SMU, he's not going to hit those, I don't think. I agree with your point on the Big Ten defenses. I also really agree with your point on the running game. I think Braedyn Locke's going to have a great year, and that's going to impact everything.
Fantastic.
He's going to be a monster. But I do think there's going to be a couple games where we're going to have to get in a shootout, where we're going to have to score 40 points. We're going to have to score 50 points. And I think in those games, you're going to see Tanner Mordecai potentially throw for 400 in a game or 350 in a couple games. And I think with those, and I also think there's some non-conference games where they're not going to pour salt in the wounds, but I think they're going to try to get the passing game hummed up before the Big Ten conference starts because they need to get these players ready to go. They need to get some more familiarity in the system. So I could see some of the early non-conference games with Tanner Mordecai getting 300, 320. So I'm going to go slightly over. If you had set it at 3,200, I would go under. So I'm just, 3,050, 3,100, somewhere in that range. I think he's going to just creep over that mark.
I think it's a really good point about tuning up the offense in the non-conference slate. And also I feel like Luke Fickell and Phil Longo for that matter seem like guys that are not going to just take their foot off the gas in the second half. Like they're going to keep going. And although I do believe they're still going to control the clock a lot with the running game, I think that this team, when they're up 21, they want to be up. They want to be up by 35, right? They're going to keep going. I'm not saying we're going to have a lot of those situations, but this is a team that's going to keep pushing hard, which means that you are going to see those yards build up.
We should probably put the qualifier. Are we counting a potential bowl game Is this
No,
regular season?
I was
Okay,
I was saying
thought so.
regular season.
I want to make sure, because then someone's going to say, and then someone's probably received, well, what about a playoff run where he's getting 2 extra games in here?
Right, right.
Yeah.
I mean,
So we're on the same page.
yeah.
Let's go touchdowns over under of 27, which I think is a great number. I'll kick this one off. I think it's just slightly under. I think 30 people are going to expect 30 touchdowns, right? Because of the term air raid, because of the guy that Phil Longo, and because of Tanner Mordecai's background. I think he's going to be right in that mid to high 20s, 25, 26. I'm going to go slightly under 27.
So I'm actually going to go over this time. I actually think that, and the reason is because I think in the red zone, where normally historically we're a team that's really just pounding it in the 5-yard line, and we're just going to try to get touchdowns for the running backs. I think we're going to have a little bit more variety in our play calling in the red zone. So I think that even when we're on the 5-yard line, we're going to see some fades. We're going to see some different kind of crossing patterns. I think he'll throw for more kind of those short yardage touchdowns as well. Obviously, the long bombs too will be there, but so just in general, I think the air raid offense will add a tick up specifically in the red zone. So I think it's going to be like 29, 28, 29 is kind of where I'm putting it. But I think it's slightly over. So it's interesting that we're flip-flopped on the yards. Yeah.
Now, I do think it feels to me like Braylon Allen is going to get an inordinate amount of carries in the red zone. If we're at the 5-yard line, it feels like that's going to be Braylon's. Like he's going to kind of take those away from, but I don't know. Like you could totally be right. Maybe this is a great opportunity to not be same old Wisconsin and smash into the brick wall. Like you can,
and that's my point. I think that we will see more 8-9 man boxes in the red zone, especially inside the 5-yard line. So I think that we're just going to be more creative offensively. I think that's the way I see it. So when you look at Wisconsin's historic numbers of running back touchdowns and quarterback touchdowns, obviously, we don't have a lot of guys that have thrown more than 20 even, right? I mean, historically, we've seen like Hornibrook do it and Cohn did it, but we don't get a lot of that. So, but I think that now with a total different variety of offense, that number just has to tick up.
Mm-hmm. What about interceptions? So you have the over-under set at 10. I'll just kick this one off. I have it over, not by a lot. I have the. Like last year, he threw 10 last year with 33 touchdowns at SMU. I think if you threw 10 at SMU, chances are you're going to have a few more issues playing against Ohio State, Iowa, some tough Big Ten defenses. So I have the over. I don't think it's dramatic. I think it's 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that range. I think that's part of talking to the SMU guy when I interviewed him, talking about Tanner. He said there is a little bit of the gunslinger with Tanner where he will put the ball into some places that maybe he shouldn't. So I'm going to go slightly over on the 10 picks.
Over as well here. I actually think maybe we should have set it a little higher. I was kind of back and forth on that, but I think it's still a good number because that's where he was last year. Over, again, Big Ten defenses. And I think people want to think that we're going to have a year like Russell Wilson where he threw 33 touchdowns and 4 picks. That's not going to happen, right? So he is going to take more chances, and I want him to take more chances, right? I want him to, in order to be that performance we want to see, that high-flying offense, you have to take chances. You have to put it in spots where it's tough, like you said. So, yeah, I think it's probably closer to 13, 14 interceptions. But listen, if the guy throws 29, 30 touchdowns and we win 10 games, fine, no problem. It's going to happen, and we have to be prepared for that.
Let me ask you this. So you're a little higher on the interceptions than I am when you say 13, 14, even 15. Is a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio? I feel like that's going to disappoint people if he's at 28 touchdowns and 14 picks.
I mean, ultimately, I don't really get caught up into ratios when it comes to that stuff. I think ultimately, if we're scoring and we're winning, if we win 8 games and he has 17 interceptions, then that's not good. But if we win 10 games and he has 15, then we've still won 10 games, and we're throwing the ball a lot more than we ever have. Like the attempts are going to be so much higher than guys like, Wilson had and Hornibrook had. Like the attempt numbers are going to be up. So therefore you're just going to have that. Ultimately for me, it just all comes down to the production, and I want to see us move the ball with more pace. Also, we're going to be more up tempo. Like all those things are going to factor into these numbers. And gosh, the defenses this guy's going to face are nothing compared to what he faced last year. And we saw in the spring game, I'm not saying the spring game is going to necessarily replicate, but he's going to take chances, and I think it's okay. The ratio really doesn't bother me as long as we're getting wins.
You hit on a good point, by the way, when you said people think this is going to be, is this a Russell Wilson thing, or I think the bigger point from that I would like to take is it's not that easy. It's just,
Right.
it's not that easy to say we're going to run the spread and we got a quarterback and now we're going to be incredible. Like I talked to a quarterback analyst with this and he said people think being a spread quarterback makes it easy. There's a lot of spread offenses that fail. There's a lot of quarterbacks playing in the spread that fail. Like it's still hard. Like you're still going to have picks.
There's a lot of other Big Ten schools that play a similar style offense. And so the Big Ten defenses are prepared for this. Like they know how to defend this. It's going to be very difficult. I mean, just because Wisconsin looks totally different, these other teams on the other side of the ball, they've seen teams play like this,
Right.
and they know how to defend them. And we know how to defend teams like that. So I feel like you're right. It's going to be a grind. This is still the Big Ten. There's still a lot of good teams, and although the schedule's a little easy, there's going to be some grind games for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point you made too. Teams know how to defend this. No, we're not going to line up with 4 out, 1 back, and people are like, "Whoa, where did Wisconsin go? Who do I cover with my middle linebacker?" No, like this is not unique. The fact that we were so outdated was unique.
Yeah.
So we're not going to surprise anybody. People aren't going to come out on the field expecting Wisconsin football of old. They're going to know how to defend this. They're going to watch Phil Longo tape. They're going to watch Tanner Mordecai tape. Like. It's not going to be rolling over everybody and dropping a 50 bomb. And I think we both are still very excited about it. And we both think Mordecai's going to be a really good quarterback and a really good player and better than we've had at the position since, certainly Wilson. Tolzien was really good, but, Cone was fine. But this is going to be one of the best quarterbacks we've had in a decade. And that is something to hang your hat on.
100%, yeah. Or the chance to be the best, right?
Right. Fair. Very fair. Let's take a very quick break. We're going to come back with superlatives, including which quarterback recruit of past year broke our hearts. We're going to talk about that and more today's Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show. And a quick second, as always, to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for helping us build this community. Really do appreciate it. All right, let's get Rajeev back on. Let's just keep this conversation going. So a couple superlatives I wanted to throw here. Certainly, if we have a few minutes, any that you can think of as well. We just want to make these position previews a little different, a little more unique than you get in a lot of places. First superlative here, what is your most fascinating storyline at the quarterback position this season?
I feel like it's kind of an easy one. It's the Longo offense, really, and what the quarterback is going to do. And we're going to see things that we've never seen before. There's 2. I got 2. So there's that piece of, we're going to see a Wisconsin quarterback do things we've never seen. And as you had a great show the other day with someone from the Badger Herald, right? A student, Chrissy, I think was her name.
Yep.
And, so Badgers who are currently in school right now they haven't had a history like we have of 20 plus years of watching the same offense. I went to school in 99. I started. So, I saw all 23 years. It's just been this, right? So for me, it's going to just be so different. And to me, that's the big storyline is seeing us actually line up in a spread offense and it's this up-tempo game. That's incredible. The other storyline, which I think is really interesting, is for those that obviously are listening to this show, you probably followed the spring game. The spring game was a bit of a shock for a lot of people because Tanner Mordecai threw 4 picks. Braedyn Locke looked really good. And I think that the storyline going in is, are we going to be as good? Is Tanner Mordecai going to be as good as everyone really expects him to be? And look, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen, but who knows? Braedyn Locke could be our starter at some point. You just never know, right? You just never know. And there's so much hype. There's so much excitement, certainly coming from me. I'm all about it. But I do think that you have to take a step back and realize none of this has actually happened yet. So given the spring game performance and the shock that put in all of us, how does that translate into the Buffalo game and the Washington State game and Georgia Southern? Those first 3 games, what is it going to look like? And that's kind of where I'm at with those.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that, really, my interesting storyline isn't so much Tanner Mordecai. I could be crazy on this. I feel like I have an idea what he's going to give us, and it's going to be really good, solid quarterback play. Braedyn Locke is my interesting storyline because there's going to be blowouts on the schedule. I really want to see what he looks like. I want to see by the end of the year, do we feel he's solidified that number 2 spot, or does Nick Evers at some point make a charge, right? I'm very fascinated by that because one of those 2 dudes is transferring. I'm not breaking news here. They're both not going to stay if one of them's not going to start, right? That's how this works. So by the end of the year, if we've seen Braedyn Locke coming in, either due to hopefully not, but injuries happen, or blowouts, whatever it is, and he looks really good, and at the end of the year he's solidly the number 2, I think it might be the book on Evers at Wisconsin, which is crazy, but that's the era we live in. So I'm fascinated by the number 2 battle this year.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And remember how excited we were when Evers came in, and then we got more excited when Mordecai
that showed
and
me great
Locke.
numbers, by the way. Great numbers.
I mean, Evers was it's a different style. It's a dual threat. There's so many attributes that he has that we're not used to seeing. So yeah, I agree. I really do hope that we are in blowout situations because I do want to see Braedyn Locke play. I want to see Evers play. I want to see what they have because you already have to think we don't have Mordecai for years and years, right? We have him for one, and then we've got to look at who the next guy is. So hopefully we get a chance to see that.
And I want to point out before someone says, "Oh, I'm not closing the book on Evers." I'm just saying if Braedyn Locke is already the number 2 and he goes the entire year as the number 2, getting those, you get more reps as the backup quarterback. It's not going to get easier necessarily for Nick Evers to catch up. Now, maybe he really gets the playbook. I don't know. All I'm saying is I'm not closing the book on Evers, but I think if Braedyn Locke shows out as the number 2 guy this year, it's not going to get easier for Nick or anyone else for that matter.
Yeah, and maybe not one of them transfer after next year. Maybe it's a year later. Then who really is? Because Nick Evers might say, "All right, I'm going to battle Locke in camp next year and try to get that position." That's fair. So maybe the year after that we see one of them go. But you're right. Both of them are not staying for the next three plus years. That's not going to happen.
Nope, and nor should they. All right, let's go this one. Recruit at this position that broke your heart. And I'm going to throw Mertz out of this because I think Mertz is probably an easy one. We all had high hopes for Mertz. Give me another one.
Yeah, then I got to go with Kurt Phillips because when Kurt Phillips was being recruited and we saw those 4 stars next to his name, and that's not something they often see at Wisconsin. And it's just watching his film, the fact that he was so quick, so agile, so dual threat. I thought he was going to be I thought he was really going to just change the game, right? He was going to come in and just be someone that we've never had. We had a little dual threat with Brooks Bollinger back in my early days. But yeah, I think that's the guy. And of course, his injuries and his surgeries is awful. But we just never saw him really materialize. And I was so excited about that guy when he was recruited.
He was, I think, the Tennessee Player of the Year.
Tennessee Player of the Year, exactly. Yep.
Big time high school prospect, big time dual threat guy. That's a great one. I had multiple names bounce around my head. I mean, DJ Gillens was a guy who was a 4-star player who was kind of electric in the open field. That was the Gary Anderson era. I remember being excited about Tanner McAvoy, also Gary Anderson, getting a different type of athlete. But I'm all on the Gary Anderson ones now because the other one's Gary Anderson too. I've talked about it on the show. I was enamored, ridiculously so, with Austin Kafensis. Listen, I'll own it. Like I try to own my bad takes and my good ones, but I was so wrong on that. I was told, I think, I don't know if this was on air, so I don't want to say who said it, but I was told that when this person first saw Austin Kafensis, they said, that can't be him. Like, that's how small he is. That cannot be the guy that we've been hearing about. So he broke like every Utah prep record. I was all in, man. I was all in. And then turns out he couldn't even last like a 2 weeks in camp as a quarterback. Doggone it. Anyway, this is a good show, man. I really, really appreciate it. Anything else, any other superlatives that you have? I thought about doing highest upside, but again, I think that's just Nick Evers. I don't think that's a huge or would you put Mettoyer in there? Where would Mettoyer fall on that for you? If we talked, what's the highest player in the pipeline? Let's say they're in the pipeline, even though there's only verbal commits.
I mean, I think Mettoyer has to be the highest upside just because of the pedigree that he's bringing right now. But I think Evers still has a huge upside. I mean, I really feel like there's so much potential there. And if he can grasp the playbook and if he can kind of spend the year learning and watching Mordecai and seeing how everything develops and seeing Longo system materialize, he can really kind of take that next step up. I really think he still has just incredible upside.
You know what I think is really cool at this position is the way Phil Longo has attacked it. And I'm going to kind of wrap up here with Landon Locke, the 25 commit, right? And let's say he came in, this is, it never works exactly how you plan. I admit that, but let's say he came in, he redshirted and he was here for, like, you potentially have quarterback coverage to 2030. I mean, that's how well Phil Longo has stocked its room. It's pretty wild when you think about it like that.
Right. You had another one, actually. I was looking at my list that you had sent me earlier, which I liked. Good. And it was the previous underrated previous player that was underrated in the position that you always enjoyed.
I love this. For me, I have two I could go with. I'm going to go with Tolzien. I don't know how underrated he is by Badger fans or not, but he shouldn't be. He was really good, really, really good. He was an orchestrator, very accurate. The underrated part with Scott Tolzien is he was tough as nails. He would stand in there, take a shot, and deliver an accurate pass on 3rd and 7. The last quarterback to beat Ohio State, right? Came up big in several moments in that game. I love Scott Tolzien. Mediocre arm, but a total gamer, really tough, really, really accurate. Over 70% completion percentage one year, I think his senior year. So Tolzien is where I would go right away.
I love it. I agree with you there. Tolzien, I mean, he had a year, he threw 2,700 yards in one year and 2,500 the next year, both 16 touchdowns. He was fantastic, very consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with Jack Cohn because I feel like a lot of people just kind of undervalue what Jack Cohn did and how good he was. I really liked him. And I was really, obviously I didn't like that he went to Notre Dame of all places, but I did enjoy watching him there. And I watched him have success. And I think I really liked him. And now, to be perfectly fair, I was one of the people that was also calling for, I wanted Mertz to play, but I also would have been totally fine if Cohn was the starter and he was going to be there because I think he was really good. I mean, I was at the Purdue game when he went to triple overtime, and he just was such a gamer. He really was. He had such competitive nature, and it really came out on the field, and I really, really liked watching him play.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Also a tough player. Really, yeah, I liked him a lot as well. All right, we're gonna wrap it up there. He is Rajeev. I'm Ryan. This is Locked On Badgers. We got a bunch of positional previews coming up. We're gonna keep this type of format. Plus, we have a couple Raphael Dunn's coaches coming on. Rajeev, that's gonna be an interesting one just to get a feel for position. Colin Cubberly, Mandel, some of those coaches coming up. So lots coming up on Locked On Badgers. But thank you so much on Wisconsin, and we'll talk tomorrow.